Welcome to AER Int channel, and welcome back to sheet metal cores. Over the course of the previous few videos, we made the base of our simple enclosure. We've added some walls, and we've made these cutouts along the front. And in this one we're going to make a lid, and so we're going to make this part into a multi-body part. To actually model the lid, we're going to create another base flange, and we want this to be on top of the current walls, and we want it to match the size of the current bottom part. Let's zoom in and select one of these small faces, and then start a sketch. And then from here, we can go to Normal to View. And we can sketch a rectangle that's linked to the size of the bottom part. So let's select the rectangle tool, the corner rectangle. But then if we zoom in, we can see we don't actually have a sharp corner there, because of the gap between the edges. So what we're gonna do is draw a rectangle in roughly the correct position, like this, and then zoom out and do the same in this corner. And then we're going to link it manually. To do this, I'm gonna zoom in. And in this sketch is still under the vine, it's still blue, so we can still move the rectangle around. And what we're gonna do is select one of the outer edges of the existing enclosure, hold down Ctrl, and then select the corresponding edge of the rectangle. And then from the menu that pops up, let's choose a collinear relation. This now means that the rectangle and the base flange follow the exact same line. Then we can do the same process for the other three edges. So select the edge of the existing base flange, hold down Ctrl, and then select the rectangular line, and then press collinear. Then I'm going to do the same on the opposite corner here, with these two lines. Remember, we can select multiple items by holding down Ctrl. So I'm selecting the edge here, holding down Ctrl, and then also selecting the rectangle. Now this takes a little bit longer, but it means that now this lid sketch is linked to the bottom part. So if we increase the size of that bottom part, then the size of the lid feature will also increase by the correct amount. When our sketch is fully defined, so when all of the lines are black, we can now go to the Sheet Metal tab. And we can use this rectangle to create a new base flange. Select base flange. And then there's two things that we should check before we press OK. Firstly, we need to untick this merge result box. This means that this new base flange won't be merged into the existing part that we've made, that base part. So uncheck that. And then also zoom in. And we might need to reverse the direction. We can see in this case that the new flange is going to clash with the existing edges. So if I press the reverse direction, there's no longer a clash there. So we need to uncheck merge result, and we might also need to press reverse direction. If that looks good, press OK. And that new base flange is created. And I'm going to rename that feature as lid. Now if you look in the design tree, up here where it says cut list, we should have a small 2 in brackets next to the cut list. That's because we now have two different sheets in the model. If we expand this, we can see the first sheet is this bottom part with the walls and the original base. And then the second sheet is the lid. So now we do have a lid, but it's basically just one single flat sheet. So it's not really ideal. It would probably be really flexible and bendy, and it's quite hard to change the bottom part, so it probably just slide off with the slightest of movement. So we're going to add some small edge flanges to help with these issues. Select the edge flange tool. Then let's zoom in, and let's just select the small front edge. Then we can also select the two side edges as well. We might need to click in the flange box again, up here at the top. So we should have the front edge and the two side edges. Let's set the angle as 90 and the flange length as 10 mm. And then for the flange position, let's go with the second one, material outside. So if we look from the front, we can see that the material of the bend is outside the flange. so it doesn't clash with the bottom part, although it is touching it exactly. That might cause us another issue, but we'll deal with that in a moment. We can also set the gap between the different edge flanges. By default this is 1mm, so I'm just gonna stick with that, and then I'm gonna press OK to make those edge flanges. So the front and the sides are looking good. If we look at the back here, we can see there's no flange along the back. Maybe we could have something like a piano hinge, which is a small hinge that runs the entire length of the sheet. We won't add that in, but we'll just round off the sharp corners of the back using the break corners option. So I'm going to go to the corners tool, choose break corner, gonna choose a round corner, and 7mm. And then just zoom in and select those small edges on both sides on the back. We don't want to select the entire face, because we only want to round off these back edges. We could also use a fillet for this, it would give us the same end result. So now our enclosure is not looking too bad. It's looking a bit more like an enclosure with this lid, but there's a few things I'm not quite happy with. Firstly, as we mentioned earlier, there's no gap between the lid and the base. We ideally need a bit of space between these flanges, so they're not too tight, and so they can even fit together at all. Whenever we make parts in SolidWorks, they're never going to be the exact size that we throw them in SolidWorks. They're always going to be slightly bigger or slightly smaller. This is the same when we're making anything at all, and this slight difference is what we call tolerance. Depending on how our parts are made, this tolerance will be different. So if we've got a cheap manufacturer or part where size isn't that critical, then the parts might be made to plus or minus 1mm, for example. So this means if we've got a part that's 10mm wide, it will actually be made somewhere between 9mm and 11mm in size. If we are making something really accurate, and we can pay more for our manufacturing, and our parts might be plus or minus 0.1mm. So then our 10mm part might actually be somewhere between 9.9 and 10.1. And this all really depends on how much we are willing to pay. If we want a smaller tolerance, then we have to pay more for our manufacturing. But the point is that there will always be some inaccuracy in there, even if it's really small. So if we make parts that fit together exactly in SolidWorks, then we might have problems. Because for example, the base part might be made slightly too large, and the lid part might be made slightly too small, so they won't fit together. So the point is, there should always be a small gap in there to help them fit together, unless you actually want an extremely tight push fit. So all of that was a bit of a long-winded way of saying that basically we need to add a gap in here. To do this, let's just edit the edge flange feature. And then we can set the offset down here. I'm going to choose the offset box. We can see that 10mm is way too large. So let's drop that down to 0.2mm. And now we can see we've got this small gap on the sides and the front. So looking at the edges, this is a bit better, but it's still not ideal because there's a bit of a sharp edge on there. It might be uncomfortable to use, and it could just look a little bit better. So let's improve this with a folded over edge, and we can add this using the hem feature. Select hem, and we want to choose a basic closed hem, which is this first option. Then let's set 5mm, and then select those inside edges. Oops, so not this one. Let's clear that selection, and then choose the inside edges. And that should be on the sides and the front. And as we're adding this, we might see a problem. But we're just gonna press OK and add the hem feature anyway. And now we can see that the folded area of the hem is actually clashing with the bottom part of our enclosure. So what we need to do is just offset our edge flange a little bit more. So I'm going to edit the edge flange feature again. I'm going to increase the offset. So our offset was 0.2mm. We've just added a 1mm hem with a 0.1mm gap. So let's increase the offset to 1.3mm. So it's the thickness of the hem material plus the gap in the hem feature. And if we add that, we can now see that we've maintained that gap between the sides and the lid. So we've improved the gap with the hem. But now we can see we've got another issue, because these hems are clashing in the corner. And I just wanted to demonstrate that sometimes when we solve one problem, it can cause us other problems. To fix this clash, let's just edit the edge flange feature again. And just increase the gap distance slightly. So it was 1 mm. Let's change it to 2 mm. And that moves the corners away from each other and solves that issue. So now we've got these nice folded over corners around the front and the back, and we've got a small gap all the way around. Now we're almost done with this video, but one final thing I want to demonstrate is flattening multi-body parts. We can only flatten one sheet at a time. If we expand the flat button feature at the bottom of the design tree here, we can now see we've got these two flat button sub-features. So we can just select this one at a time and press flatten or unsuppress the feature. One of these is the base and one is the lid. So I'm going to select this one and unsuppress it. And we can see that's the base there, so the base part is flattened. But if we try to unsuppress the second one, we can't unsuppress them both at the same time. So first we have to suppress this first one again, and then we can unsuppress the other one. So there we see the lid part is now flattened. So it's only possible to flatten one sheet at a time in a multi-sheet part. So to recap this video, we added another sheet, which was the lid, and for this we drew a sketch. We used the base flange again. We unchecked that merge result box, so we made an entirely new sheet. This then gave us another sheet in the cut list folder. Then we added edge flanges all the way around, and we made sure that we had a small gap or clearance between the parts to account for the manufacturing tolerances. We also added a hem to the flanges to make them a bit better looking and a bit more comfortable to use. And then we adjusted the bend cap just to avoid the hems clashing in the corners. In the next video, we'll finish off this enclosure by adding some vents and some forms features. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like. I hope it can be a little helpful and useful.